It is December 21st, 2023, which means this is the last first thoughts and initial impressions video for Epic 7 for this year. This one will be on Blooming Lidica, the character that you could tell the art team had a really fun time with. I feel like they were on something when they made this character. Please, YouTube, do not demonetize my video. She's kind of risque, man. They are definitely pushing the envelope with this character, that's for sure. Regardless, I will give you my 2 cents on the character. Do I think she's good? Where would I play her? What kind of artifact? All that stuff you've come to expect from me in an impressions video. Let's get this party started and take a look at Lidica's S3 animation.
The ecstasy of fruitful blooming. I wish you could feel it too. If you have no water, then give me your blood. My heart is pounding.
Well, with those animations and those voice lines, this is going to be a record-breaking banner. They're going to make bank, I feel like, off of this character. Those voices, by the way, can be attributed to Amanda Layton in the English dub of Epic 7. We've talked about her already at one point in a First Thoughts and Initial Impressions earlier this year. She is the voice of Last Piece Corinne, as well as all versions of Corinne, and obviously all versions of Lidica. Taking a look at her stats, she is an Earth Thief of the Capricorn zodiac symbol, which means she shares a stat line with the collab hero I Winter. She has 1,057 attack, 532 defense, 5,542 health, 118 base speed, 15% critical hit chance, 150% critical hit damage, 30% starting effectiveness, and no starting effect resistance. Obviously, the standouts here are going to be the high 118 base speed, as well as the starting 30% effectiveness, but everything else isn't particularly great. Defense and health are very below average for a 5-star in Epic 7, and that's not particularly good because, spoiler alert, this is a health scaling hero. If you couldn't tell based on the imprint concentration there being health percentage, imprint release is attack percentage for the team. I expect, unless the health percentage really matters for you, you're probably going to want to use the imprint release. Overall, not too sure how I feel about the stat line as well as whether or not dupes are worth it. Let's take a look now at the actual kit. First up is Seductive Scent. It increases the speed of Lidica proportional to the number of debuffs inflicted on all enemies up to a maximum of 70%. After an ally except for Lidica attacks, when the target has a debuff, activates Thorned Vine. Thorned Vine can only be activated once every 3 turns. The activated component here is an AoE attack that decreases buff durations by 1 turn and makes all enemies unable to be buffed for 2 turns. Damage dealt increases proportional to max health. Skill 3 is Fruit of Ecstasy. You acquire 3 souls upon use, and it has a 4 to 5 turn cooldown depending on Malagora. Attacks the enemy with a flower and grants skill nullifier once to all allies. When Lidica's speed is greater than the target's speed, penetrates the target's defense with penetration rate increasing proportional to the difference up to a maximum of 100% penetration. Damage dealt increases proportional to the caster's max health. This attack cannot trigger a critical hit. And finally, we have Twirling Thorns, which is the basic skill. Attacks the enemy with a sword with a 30 to 40% chance, depending on Malagora, to stun the target for 1 turn. Damage dealt increases proportional to the caster's max health. Soulburn effect for the cost of 10 souls increases the effect chance to 100%. Just like with the previous video that I did here for impressions, we're just going to get the S1 out of the way right now. 40% is the standard stun rate for an S1 in 2023 going into 2024 in Epic 7. And Soulburn for the cost of 10 souls to give it a 100% chance to stun is, again, pretty standard. What's not standard, though, is pretty much everything else about this character. Low base health, but health scaling moves. High starting effectiveness, but no real debuffs in the kit. Only really a stun and some unbuffables to pass around here or there. And that's kind of a bummer because, remember, Seductive Scent really wants a lot of debuffs on the enemy team. And to really hammer that point home, let's look at the S3 Fruit of Ecstasy. So this is not official or confirmed, but from what I've been told, 170 speed is the number to hit if you want the full 100% defense penetration on this move. That means that priority 1 is trying to figure out how to have the right base speed on the character and have the right combination of debuffs from just either A, Lidica herself, or the right teammates on the team to get to that over 170 speed value. So basically, if you have just Lidica and she has just her own 4 debuffs, which will give you essentially 4 stacks of Seductive Scent, which we have those numbers as well. Seductive Scent gives you a 7% speed increase for each debuff on the enemy team, up to a maximum of 10. Again, that number is not confirmed. But essentially, what it comes down to is, does Lidica, whatever target speed you're shooting for in the character, does her 4 debuffs that you trigger off of Thorn Vine, is that going to be a big enough boost to her speed to get 170 over the target? And I feel like in a lot of cases, it probably will, right? To give you an example, like a 250 speed Blooming Lidica, if she uses Thorn Vine, that is 4 debuffs on the enemy team, which, unless my math is wrong or the multipliers are wrong, that is a 28% increase in speed, which is a bonus 70 speed to the character, which puts her at 320, which means you get max penetration rate on anything 150 speed or lower, which means that you probably are going to end up killing base speed Navy Captain Landies. You're probably going to be killing base speed martial artist Kens as well, which I think is probably the primary design goal behind Blooming Lidica, is to actually just outright kill these characters that are slow and counter base and kind of dominating the meta, at least as of the recording of this video. So that's kind of where we're at on the character, is what can you pair her with to get her speed threshold high enough? So potential teammates are things like Ran. You can even use Zio. He only gives 1 debuff, but Zio will trigger the, obviously, Thorn Vines here, and that will give you potentially a couple more unbuffable debuffs, which will have 5 total. So that's a 35% increase to speed, which is halfway to the maximum total. And that's enough to kill a lot of the bruisers in the game, or at least give you max penetration rate. You probably still need a whole boatload of HP on this thing, because even though it has a huge multiplier, I believe Fruit of Ecstasy, from what I've been told, is a 30% health multiplier. Even though that's massive, that's one of the biggest in the game, if not the biggest in the game, it doesn't change the fact that this character has absolutely abysmal base speed. So this is definitely one where we have to see if these numbers are correct, and we're going to have to test them and see at what point. This is very much like a math person's character, as somebody who really wants to tinker with it. Eventually, we'll settle into a groove as a community where people have realized, like, this speed threshold for tuning is correct with this amount of HP. Like, that's basically what I'm trying to tell you here. The character on paper is either really strong because everything lines up correctly. Like, oh, if I play Lidica at like exactly 254 speed with like a 270 speed, Urban Shadow Shoe, and she gives speed buff to my entire team, and that's going to make Lidica have the X amount of speed, which is just enough speed to kill this character, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's going to be a very complicated and complex character. For most people, though, if you just want like the real simple version, I think that it's a character that lends itself much better to aggressive players, cleave players in general, because you naturally are going to be having fast characters, and most cleave openers are fast characters with debuffs. So that's pretty much my reasoning for why you'd probably want to lean more towards that. For us standard and tank down players, my tank down brethren, this one is probably not as important of a character for you. It's a wait and see to see if somebody could kind of figure it out. I do think it'd be funny to see how like a big bruiser counter-esque counter set version of Lidica fares, considering she has a stun on her S1. And you can get her to, I assume, decent bulk stats, because, well, the video has her at around 24k. So who knows? Maybe that's a thing that we might be able to actually do. But again, this is a large wait and see overall. I think that if it was me, 250 speed is probably the minimum that I would play on the character on speed set, with like hit set as my offset. You might be able to go a bit lower in terms of speed, maybe 240, especially if you're trying to pair her with something like Death Dealer Ray, or even like Solitaria. Some Solitarias are like around the 260, 265 marks. I could see you wanting to go slower to make sure that those characters don't get speed RNG'd. Tuning is a must, I think, for this character, by the way. Speed tuning is a must, if that's not already apparent. Like, this character is so dependent on her speed in relation to every other unit in the game. And I think that that's one of the things that might make this character fall flat, is it just feels like it's not a bad character. But I think this is definitely, like I said, a math person's character. This is definitely somebody who understands speed tuning in this game very well, understands the relationship between their characters and Lidica, understands how many debuffs they need, and can calc on the fly to figure out, do I have the correct penetration rate? Am I 170 over the target? If this character does see some play, I do expect a shift in how certain people build characters. You might see Landy start to become quite a bit faster. Same thing with martial artist Ken, to avoid getting dunked by this character. Or maybe the character just simply can't get the right combination of speed and health, and just can't kill anything as a result. Because remember, you can get the 100% defense penetration, but the base damage still has to kill. So even though she has the massive multiplier, she just doesn't have the stats to actually support it. So let's wrap things up with the artifact now, and it is Seductive Flower. Kudos to the art department for that. I understand now why people want to call her Lidica for this thing. So it increases the effectiveness of the user by 15 to 30% based on artifact level, and after an extra attack, decreases the combat readiness of the target by 10 to 20%, again based on artifact level. Can only be activated once every 3 turns. This is, for sure, in my opinion, the best artifact to play on the character, and is the reason why I was saying I think this is more of an aggressive or a cleave player's character. So let's break this down really fast. Obviously, whenever you land a debuff, you will proc Lidica's passive, her Seductive Scent. It will trigger Thorn Vine, which is only a 1-turn buff decrease and a 2-turn unbuffable for everybody, which is fine, but not exactly like the greatest, right? It doesn't even really hit that hard. Its multiplier for damage is actually pretty trash, if we're being real here. So having the up to 20% AoE pushback on the enemy team gives that a whole heck of a lot more value on the character. So now just imagine that you have, say, Ran at the start of a fight. So you can just use Instant Blade, get the defense breaks, get the Stigma. It procs Thorn Vine from Lidica. And then she gets to push back the entire enemy team by 20%. She's got the huge speed boost, and it's going to allow you to overtake the enemy team, kill off anything problematic, hopefully with the S3, assuming you've achieved your penetration point, and then just dominate from there. And even then, if you are like a mid-speed player who just has like Zeo, you could take Lidica again, have like Zeo come through, right? Press S3, silence one target, and push them back, and then that's going to proc Lidica's Thorn Vine again. That's going to shove the rest of the team back and the person you already shoved back a ton even further, and that's going to give you tempo throughout the game, let you basically get set up and get the ball rolling against the enemy. So again, that's why I think Seductive Flower is pretty much the best pickup for the character. Overall, I wouldn't be surprised if this character falls flat, but I do think that in the hands of somebody who really understands the tuning of this game's speed and the breakpoints for the HP, like whatever breakpoint she needs to kill specific characters, they will find a lot of success with this character. This is not a newbie-friendly character, in my opinion, honestly. I think this is more of a veteran player's character, so if you're newer, I still wouldn't skip because this is a limited character. I always advocate that you roll for every limited character, because if the character does fall flat, you don't know, maybe they get reworked. Just look at like Death Dealer Ray recently. I know that's not a limited character, but Death Dealer Ray got completely changed as a character, and there's multiple other examples throughout the history of E7 of characters getting completely reworked or just getting buffed if they're just not good. Look at literally Biblis, who this same patch just got a hotfix / buff. So again, I always strongly recommend you pull for a limited. And if you want to play this character, I highly recommend picking up the artifact, because I just think that it really completes the character's kit. And without that CR pushback, she's not nearly as good at setting up and kind of dismantling the enemy composition, which is kind of what she's designed to do. So those are my thoughts on Blooming Lidica, or as the community is now calling her, Lidica. So hopefully you enjoyed it. I will be back with more impressions in 2024, so hopefully you enjoyed these for the year. As always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and also enjoy your holidays. I will hopefully see you tomorrow for how to play Abyssal Euphine. Be well now.